Yo, what's good everyone? Week 6 of the NFL is here, and today I'm going to be taking a first look at this Sunday NFL DraftKings main slate. What I'm going to do here today is go position by position, talk about the cash game plays and tournament plays that are sticking out to me here early on in the week. And then to wrap up the video, we'll put together a first look cash lineup and a first look GPP lineup. Now you notice the background here is a little different. I am traveling for work this week, so recording these videos out of my hotel room. But I'm a man of the people and still wanted to get these videos out to you guys. So with that being said, let's take a first look here at this Week 6 main slate. Alright, so we're going to kick things off here with the quarterbacks like we always do. And I got my eye on 4 quarterbacks here early on in the week. First and foremost, we're seeing Josh Allen back at the top here, $8,200 in what should be a shootout against the Kansas City Chiefs. Like I've mentioned, I think each of the past 3 weeks, as long as Josh Allen's price is going to remain here at $8,200, I don't know why he wouldn't be in consideration for cash and obviously for tournaments as well. He's now scored 24 plus DraftKings points in every single game so far this year, and that's his floor. And you can obviously the ceiling there, close to 40 DraftKings points. So yeah, I think I'll probably go right back to Josh Allen here, but there are a few cheaper quarterbacks that I wouldn't mind pivoting to as well. There's actually one quarterback in the 5K range that I do think is cash viable, kind of surprisingly. You guys might know who I'm talking about, but before we get into the 5K range here, there's 2 other quarterbacks that are sticking out to me here on the tournament side of things. Now, obviously, Lamar Jackson's always in consideration there, same with Patrick Mahomes, but Kyler Murray here going up against Seattle, whose defense legit cannot stop anything. They're getting shredded by every single offense. We saw it again last week with the New Orleans Saints, the week before that, the Detroit Lions. I don't see any reason here Arizona shouldn't be able to do the same thing. I know they're still 1 week away from getting DeAndre Hopkins back, but Kyler Murray here at $7,300, there's definitely some intrigue in that game as a whole from a tournament perspective. So I think we can consider him, and we really haven't even seen one of those big rushing games out of him. This very well could be the week. Now, scrolling down here just a little bit more, low 6K range, Kirk Cousins sticks out to me here, going to Miami. I like this game as well in general from the tournament side of things. There's a lot of offensive weapons that we can target here. Obviously, Jefferson, you got Adam Thielen, could mix in someone like Irv Smith or even Delvin Cook. And then on the Miami side, we got Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Raheem Mostert, who looks to be taking over the backfield for Miami. We'll get to him when we get to the running backs. But yeah, Cousins here at $6,000. Really cheap price tag, and a game that has a lot of shootout potential, in my opinion, so I do like him on the tournament side of things. Now, getting into the 5K range here, Geno Smith. I don't think any of us saw this coming the year that he's having so far. He did start the first 2 weeks a little slower. 17 DraftKings points, not bad, especially at that price of $5,000, but has just been fantastic here over the last 3 weeks. Now, I know a lot of people talking last week going, yeah, well, he played Atlanta and Detroit. Let's see what he can do here against the New Orleans Saints. Goes out, damn near throws for 300 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. He's got some sneaky rushing upside as well. Doesn't use that on a consistent basis like a Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts, but he's certainly capable of racking up points there as well. And at $5,700, what do we need? About 17 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 3x value? I think he's certainly capable of doing that, especially against this defense here and the Arizona Cardinals. Now, moving over here to the running backs, and it's kind of an interesting situation for the running backs this week. A handful of starters that are injured or listed as questionable very well could have some backups playing this week. But we're going to start at the top like we always do. I love the involvement Christian McCaffrey has had in the passing game here over the past 2 weeks. But traveling across country, playing the LA Rams, who have been good at stopping running backs, definitely more of a tournament play for me. Not going to consider him in cash. Same thing there with Nick Chubb. A little tougher matchup against New England, but he's just been fantastic running the ball this year. Tough to consider him in cash just because he doesn't get involved in the passing game, but as you can obviously see there, he's just smashing this year. Over 100 rushing yards in 4 of 5 games. He's definitely going to be in my tournament pool this week. Jonathan Taylor is listed as questionable here, obviously missed last week. I hope he doesn't miss because he's one of the best players in the NFL at his position, but at the same time, on the cash side of things, I kind of hope he does miss because that's going to free up either Nyheim Hines or even Deion Jackson, who we'll look at here later on at the running back position. $8,000, I think we can justify Jonathan Taylor there, but outside of week 1, he hasn't necessarily been great this year. Maybe this is a get-right spot for him at home against the Jags. Now, Barkley, Jones, Cook, Fournette, I like those prices, but probably more of a tournament consideration for me this week, at least early on here on Tuesday. I think that Alvin Kamara is super interesting here if his usage is going to be similar to what we saw last week. 23 rushing attempts and 6 targets, 6 receptions. Damn near broke 100 receiving and 100 rushing yards in that game. I don't expect him to get 29 opportunities per week, but 20, 25, I definitely consider him in cash. And I just like that game in general between Cincinnati and New Orleans this week. I think we could target that from the tournament side of things as well. Now, Jeff Wilson's been running the hell out of the ball for San Francisco as well. I like him on the tournament side of things against Atlanta. Wouldn't consider him in cash necessarily. Just really doesn't get involved in the passing game. But Ramondre Stevenson here, really interesting setup against Cleveland, who can't stop the run. Obviously, we need to watch and see what's going to happen with Damian Harris. He left last week with a hamstring injury, and again, I don't want to see guys like that get injured, but I'm kind of hoping he misses here in week 6, freeing up Ramondre Stevenson as the number 1 running back. The volume was awesome last week, getting 27 opportunities, and again, Cleveland just cannot stop the run. I would consider him in cash and tournaments should Damian Harris miss. Now, scrolling down here a little bit, let's talk about Breece Hall. I don't love the matchup on the road here against Green Bay, but this kid just keeps getting better week in and week out, more involved in this offense, and hasn't slowed down, being that Zach Wilson is back at the quarterback position. Probably not going to play him this week here, but I did want to mention him as well. And let's talk about let's talk about Raheem Mostert here, because I did talk about him on the tournament side of things in this game between them and Minnesota. He basically took over as the number 1 running back last week over Chase Edmonds. You can see here, 18 rushing attempts. He had 3 targets in that game, played really well. Let's go look at Chase Edmonds here quick. I believe he's $4,900 or $4,800. $4,800. 1 rushing attempt, 2 targets. Now, I don't know if that's going to be a trend that continues going forward. You can see he was pretty heavily involved the first 3 weeks, but Raheem Mostert looks much better in my opinion, so I wouldn't mind him at all on the tournament side of things, especially at that price of $5,700. But Kenneth Walker, let's get to him, because Rashad Penny did break his leg last week, unfortunately, and he is going to be out for the season, which means that Ken Walker should step in as a number 1 running back in this Seattle offense, which has again surprised us all this year. Now, we haven't seen a lot of volume out of Ken Walker so far this year. He did miss week 1 with a groin injury, but he's primed to step in as the number 1 running back in this offense, and a very good price tag there of $5,400. We need, 16 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 3x value. I think he can do that in that matchup against Arizona. I'm not afraid of that defense. And then the last running back that I want to talk about here is Deion Jackson. Now, again, we're going to need to make sure that Jonathan Taylor is out this week if we're going to play anyone like Deion Jackson, but should he play, and Nyheim Hines is out as well, so I guess 2 running backs we need to keep an eye on. Deion Jackson at $5,200 against the Jags at home. That's going to be a low-price running back play for us. He'll probably be very popular if Hines and Taylor are out, but we got to look at him throughout the week here, considering the price and the matchup. Now, folks, before we dive into the wide receivers here, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. I'm going to have a lot of football content coming out for you guys this year. Now, just like most weeks, there's a lot to love about the wide receiver position. That doesn't change here in week 6. I'm looking at my iPad here right now where I jotted down some notes for this first look. I liked 15 different wide receivers right off the bat, and there's probably more that I could have talked about. I'm not going to spend 15 minutes talking about each one of these guys. Make sure you check out my cash plays and GPP plays video later on in the week where I start to condense down those plays, but I'll highlight these guys here, go through them pretty quickly. First and foremost, we got Kupp and JJ right at the top. We don't need to make a case for those guys. They're just fantastic. Cooper Kupp's averaging damn near 30 DraftKings points per game. Jefferson not far behind him. I talked about how much I love that game in general between the Vikings and Miami. Maybe we'll build a Kirk Cousins lineup with JJ at the end of this video on the tournament side of things. I think Steph Diggs is in a good matchup here against Kansas City, which obviously has a lot of shootout potential. And then Jamar Chase there. Strictly a tournament play for me at this point, but again, I love that game as well between Cincinnati and New Orleans. Debo, he's just so hit or miss. I talked about this earlier in the year. The efficiency from last year just was not going to translate here into 2022. He's still going to break some big plays, but he was just so great last year. It was unsustainable here heading into this year. Tournament play, but probably not going to be someone that I play. Tyreek Hill will absolutely be in my tournament pool, but I want to really highlight Marquise Brown here because he saw double-digit targets once again last week. That makes 4 straight weeks where he's seen 10-plus targets. Again, a great matchup here against Seattle and a divisional opponent. That Seattle defense can legit stop nothing. So Hollywood Brown, both a tournament and cash game consideration for me this week. Now scrolling down here a little bit, Mike Evans looks nice against Pittsburgh, whose defense is banged up right now. Metcalf there, like that game in general, like I said. Gabe Davis, we can definitely consider him in tournaments, just exploded last week. Had 3 catches for 171 yards, 2 touchdowns, 35 DraftKings points. That is the epitome of a tournament play. Not going to consider him in cash, but definitely viable on the tournament side of things. Chris Godwin, I do think we can go back to him in cash. Saw 6 targets last week. And again, this Steelers defense is just banged up right now. Nice price at $6,100 there. Both a tournament and cash game consideration for me. We got Allen Lazard on my list here, who's right below Chris Godwin. He's more of a touchdown monster in my opinion. He's got 3 touchdowns here in 4 games. Aaron Rodgers definitely looks for him in the red zone, and a good matchup there against the New York Jets. Now scrolling down here into the 5K range, I do want to highlight both Lockett and Chris Olave. Lockett here playing really well, and his price just isn't going up. I'm not entirely sure why. I think he's at least a 6K player at this point, so I'll take advantage of that price tag at $5,600 in both cash and tournaments. Now, Chris Olave did get banged up last week, left the game with a concussion, but hard to ignore his numbers. The volume is definitely there. And again, I just like that game in general between them and Cincinnati. $5,500. His price just isn't going up here over the last 3 weeks either, so I will take advantage of that. Now, Jacoby Myers is someone that I wanted to highlight. Surprising volume here. 6, 13, 8 targets here. He obviously missed weeks 3 and 4, but came back with 8 targets last week, 111 receiving yards, and looks pretty damn good in my opinion, and that's been with both Mac Jones and Zappy at the quarterback position. Probably not a cash game consideration for me. I'd rather play Ramondre if Damian Harris is out, but definitely a tournament play there at that price of $5,300. And then let's hop into the 4K range here where I actually have 4 other wide receivers. I'll go through these pretty quickly. First is Romeo Doubs there, the Green Bay Packers. Clear-cut wide receiver number 2 in this offense behind Allen Lazard, but a really nice price tag there at $4,800 and a good matchup at home against the Jets. Probably a tournament play for me, but I think he's just on the edge of being a cash game consideration. George Pickens, kind of the same thing here. I might consider him in cash, considering the price at $4,600. Volume has been really nice with Kenny Pickett, and this kid's just so good. He made another ridiculous catch last week that ultimately didn't count, but the kid is sick to say the least. Alec Pierce here at $4,300, definitely a tournament consideration for me. 9 targets last week, made some beautiful catches, contested catches. He's a 6'3" wide receiver. He should be doing that. As long as Matt Ryan can get him some good balls, he's going to make some good plays this year. Tournament play for me, but right on the edge of being a cash game consideration as well. If Jonathan Taylor does miss, maybe he will creep in to my cash pool. And then the last guy here is going to be Rondale Moore. Basically took over that Greg Dortch role, who we played cash the first, 3 weeks it was. Rondale comes in week 4, played most of the snaps, I do believe. Saw 5 targets in that game, but Played a little bit more last week, 8 targets, 13 DraftKings points. I'll definitely take that at that price of $4,200 on the cash side of things. And then we got the tight ends here. Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews back on the main slate. Always tournament considerations. Probably not going to go there in cash at those prices. George Kittle is very interesting here on the tournament side of things. Really hasn't done much this year, but this could be the spot against Atlanta, who have not been very good at stopping tight ends. And a solid price tag there at $5,100. It's just going to take one blow-up game from him where he's going to be in that 6K range. So he'll be in my tournament mix this week. Zach Ertz as well. Again, just love that matchup against Seattle. It's going to be the last week we get him before DeAndre Hopkins comes back. I just think the volume will probably go down a little bit for him once he does return, but has been solid all year long here. Hasn't put a massive DraftKings points, but very consistent floor there of 10, 11 DraftKings points per game so far. Now scrolling down here to Tyler Higbee, I think we have to consider him on both the cash and tournament side of things. Volume's been very good this year, and he's making plays as well. He's kind of the number 2 pass catcher in this offense behind Cooper Kupp. Allen Robinson just not panning out so far. Now we're going to scroll down here into the 3K range. Actually, David Njoku is $4,000, so right on the edge there. But some nice volume here over the past 3 weeks. He's turned that into some decent plays as well, and some solid DraftKings points, both a cash game and tournament consideration for me. Now we're going to get into the 3K range here, where I think Robert Tonyan is interesting, or Tunyon, I believe it's pronounced. But again, a good matchup at home here against the Jets. Packers did lose last week to the New York Giants. They will be looking to rebound at home here. I'm basically going for touchdown upside when I do play Tunyon. Next, I got Hayden Hurst. He's kind of been up and down this year. I'm a little hesitant to say he's a cash game consideration, but at that price of $5,300, yeah, I think he's probably in the mix. I did see 8 and 7 targets the first 2 weeks, didn't do much in weeks 3 and 4, and then bounces back last week with 7 targets. So, hey, look, if he's going to be getting 5-6 targets per game, definitely a cash game consideration, but I will be considering him in tournaments. Same thing with Irv Smith here. Maybe I'll mix him in on that tournament first build that we have. Mix him in with JJ and Cousins. But another guy who I just kind of hope he scores a touchdown to meet value. The volume has been solid here since week 2. And I look back to week 2 when he played Philadelphia. He could have had 2 touchdowns in that game, scored 25 plus DraftKings points, but he didn't. But he has that upside. And then the last guy I got here is Cade Otton of the Tampa Bay. I almost said Lightning there. Oh my God. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hockey is back, folks. That's for sure. Lightning do play tonight against the New York Rangers. Go check out my video where I break that down. But Otton here, 7 targets last week, being that Cameron Brate was out. So if Brate is going to be out here again this week, I think we can definitely consider him as a 2K play with some decent upside there on the cash side of things and the tournament side of things. And then to wrap up the positional plays here, we got the defenses. I'm going to keep this really short and sweet, folks. I'm probably just going to go with the Panthers here. They're the cheapest defense, playing the LA Rams, whose offensive line is horrible, and Matthew Stafford already has 7 interceptions this year. So cheapest defense against that offensive line, yeah, I'll take it in my cash lineup, and I'll consider them in tournaments as well. All right, folks, now to wrap up this video, we're going to put together a first look cash lineup and a first look tournament lineup. Let's start on the cash side of things here. Let's just put in Josh Allen. Like I said, $8,200. If his price is going to stay there, he's going to be a cash game consideration every single week, and I love the shootout potential between them and Kansas City. Let's get into the running backs here. I love Alvin Kamara's volume from last week. Like I said, if it's even remotely close to that, I will definitely play him in cash at that price of $6,700. And I'm hoping that Damian Harris doesn't play this week, so we can put in Ramondre Stevenson. And let's just go put in Ken Walker at $5,400 as well, putting in 3 running backs to start this cash lineup. Now, over to the wide receiver here, got some decent money at $4,700. Actually, let's just put in that defense because I know I'm going to go with the Panthers. That gives us $5,300. What can we do here on the wide receiver side of things? Let's put in Justin Jefferson to start. And let's go down to Rondale Moore as well at $4,200 in a great matchup against the Seattle Seahawks. Okay, so $4,100 left over per position. At the tight end position, let's just assume that Cameron Brate does not play. We could put in Cade Otton. That gives us $5,300 to fill in the rest of our lineup. Now, I could go with someone like Jacoby Myers there, but I already got Ramondre Stevenson in, so I don't necessarily love that. And don't really love the low 5K range in general on the cash side of things. Could go with Romeo Doubs there. Could go with George Pickens. Let's just put in George Pickens for right now. I know that gives us, $700 left over for our cash lineup, which isn't a bad thing. We can then look to pivot elsewhere and find some better plays. But in terms of volume, which is what I'm always going for on the cash side of things, this looks pretty solid to start the week. Now, let's go ahead and put together a first look tournament lineup as well. I talked about that Minnesota Vikings game quite a bit against Miami, so let's do a little Kirk Cousins stack here with Justin Jefferson and Irv Gotti. Let's type that in. Irv Smith. There we go. All right, $5,300 left over. Let's run it back with Raheem Mostert. We could go with Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle. Absolutely. Maybe we do a full game stack where we put in Raheem and one of those wide receivers. But we'll start the lineup this way. Now, we do got to put in some wide receivers here outside of Justin Jefferson. Again, I'm just looking at my iPad here and my notes from earlier. Let's put in Hollywood Brown there as well. Love the volume we've seen for him out of the last 4 weeks. Love that matchup against Seattle. And let's run it back on the other side of that game with Tyler Lockett at $5,600. Okay, so that gives us $4,400 left over per position. I really like Alvin Kamara here this week. I like that game between them and Cincinnati, if you haven't heard me mention that a few times throughout. And then Alec Pierce, I think, is really interesting on the tournament side of things as well, and a really cheap price tag of $4,300. Why can I not see him? There he is. All right, so that gives us $2,400 left over for the defense. We could go with the Steelers if we want to get a little more contrarian, because I do believe the Panthers will be popular, but I'm not going to do that here right now. So we got a Cousins stack there with Justin Jefferson and Irv Smith running it back with Raheem Mostert. I got Alvin Kamara, who I love at home against Cincinnati. Marquise Brown and Tyler Lockett going against one another. Little mini game stack there. And then I got Alec Pierce there, who's really cheap at $4,300, seeing more volume each and every week and just getting more involved in this offense in general, so I don't mind that on the tournament side of things at all. And then again, just put the Panthers defense in there. They're a cheap defense going against a bad offensive line, and Matthew Stafford, who again has had 7 interceptions this year. All right, everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's have ourselves a great week here, folks. I got a lot of NFL content still coming your way, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, I'm out of here.